Today we're going to talk about analytics for marketers. As a lot of you I'm sure have heard, Google Analytics, analytics in general is a very hot topic. And it's one of those topics that marketers aren't really that familiar with. Marketers aren't really traditionally trained in analytics. They're trained in creative execution. They're trained in design. So understanding not only what creative we should be developing, but how it performs is important. And Google Analytics is one way that we do that. So a couple questions for you guys. What's the value of marketing? How do we know if it works? How can we drive better results? Does anyone in here do any marketing at all? Yeah? So how do you know if your marketing is working?
Phone rings.
The phone rings? Anything else?
The data, responses that you get.
Responses? Exactly. I mean, what's marketing's goal? What is marketing trying to do?
Drive sales.
Exactly. Drive sales, right? That's the end of the day, marketing's trying to drive sales. So one thing that we always use at Alight is the customer decision journey. The customer decision journey is a way for us to help to understand how people make buying decisions. People buy from a brand. They don't buy online or offline. You don't say, I'm going to buy a pair of shoes, so I am going to go online and see what kind of shoes I can buy. You decide you want a pair of tennis shoes and you need a pair of Nikes, and so you then look for a pair of Nike shoes. You may look online or you may look offline, but ultimately you're buying from a brand. You're not buying online or offline. The buying decision is critically important in analytics and how marketers need to target and track all of this whole entire customer decision journey. So what the customer decision journey is all about is the concept that people first become aware of a product. Then they start to research a product. They analyze, consider, they begin to engage, and then they buy. After they buy, then they begin to evaluate and advocate, and that's where loyalty comes in. The important thing here from an analytics standpoint is that there are a ton of different touch points throughout this entire customer decision journey. You don't just see one ad and then immediately go buy something, right? You're exposed to multiple messages from multiple touch points. You may have seen a television ad or you heard a radio ad, and then you saw something on Facebook, and then maybe you did an organic search, and then you did a paid search, right? So there's all these touch points that a person will receive messaging from a brand. And all of these touch points are important for measuring the customer decision journey. Historically, we've spent a lot of time only looking at the very last source that a person is touched by and attributing all the conversion to that source. So for example, let's see you saw a TV ad, and then you came online and you did an organic search, and then you came online and you did a paid search. You clicked on a paid search ad, came to this site, and let's say you bought those pair of tennis shoes. Historically, marketers would attribute 100% of the credit to that last touch, that paid search ad. TV doesn't get any credit, and organic search doesn't get any credit. And that's not really very fair, right? Nor is it very accurate, nor does it help us make better media and marketing plans as marketers. So the whole idea is understanding that there are multiple touch points throughout a customer's journey to make a buying decision. So building your analytics toolkit. We use a marketing analytics framework that we take all of our clients through. What this marketing analytics framework does is it ensures that we are able to track effectively all of the different channels that we're advertising in, and it takes us all the way to predict. So the first step in the framework is tracking. So tracking is all about all of those channels that we just looked at, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or TV, radio, print. It's being able to make sure that all of those are being tracked appropriately and that they're all being you can see all of those coming in. Sometimes what you don't want to do is end up with marketing channels that you're not tracking, and then having bad data, because you never want to make decisions on bad data. So we always start with making sure that we have a strategy in place to track every single marketing channel that's being used. The next piece of the framework is a holistic understanding of marketing performance. And this is the measure phase. The measure phase takes all of the data that's being collected in the tracking phase and it puts it into a data warehouse. This allows us to slice and dice the data in any way that we need to. No longer can you just rely on the data that comes out of individual marketing channels like AdWords or Google Analytics even. You have to bring it all together in a cohesive place so that you can do the next step, which is targeting. Targeting is all about attributing performance. So like I just talked about, it's no longer about the very last step a marketer may take. It's actually about the entire path to purchase. And that entire path to purchase is called attribution. When you are defining how each of those steps are valued in your entire marketing plan, that is the definition of attribution. So in the targeting phase, that's where we are bringing all of that data together and able to say where in the customer decision journey do these steps live and what is the value of each one of these marketing touch points. The final phase is predicting. And this helps us forecast behavior. So this is where everybody wants to get to. This is the question that people come to us and say, I want an attribution model. Can I have an attribution model? And we say, sure you can. But first you have to make sure you have these other 3 steps all set. You don't want to do an attribution model when you don't even know if your data's right. It's very important. So this predict step, what it does is it says, if I had $1 million, where should I spend that money? If somebody were to give me an extra $1 million for my marketing campaign, where should I spend it? Based on historical performance and based upon statistical modeling, what's the best media mix to invest this money? That's the holy grail of marketing analytics, is not being able to only understand what happened in the past, but to be able to understand and predict future behavior. So we talked about the customer decision journey and all of the steps that someone might go through. Where Google Analytics comes in is a very critical part of the customer decision journey. So the very first step in the journey is awareness. Awareness is usually mass media type efforts is usually what we use to generate awareness as marketers. So we can use TV, we can use out of home, we can use radio, print, email, banner ads. And where Google Analytics comes in is it's the data, it's the piece that collects all of that data. So what we'll do is we'll take somebody who comes from a TV ad and we will give them a unique URL to send them online so that we can track if they saw the TV. Same with radio. We can give them a unique URL to track radio. Again, with things like email, it's a lot easier to track because it's already a digital medium. Same with banner ads. We now can tell if somebody not only clicks through a banner ad, but if they actually just viewed the banner ad and didn't click, we can now tell that as well inside of Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is our data collector for all these awareness sources. Same with the research. Research, people go online and, we tend to believe the opinions of people we've never even met, right? If you're researching a hotel in Illinois, you'll believe Tom from Canada and his review of the DoubleTree Hotel, even though you've never met Tom, right? So research is a big piece of our buying decision. Again, that could be other websites. That could be they're researching using search. And again, all of this data is then collected in Google Analytics. The analyze piece, again, that might be Twitter, that might be blogs, same thing. All of this data is collected, and we use Google Analytics to, at each step of this funnel. The consideration set, once you engage, that's when you actually start coming to the website usually. You come to your website and you start engaging with the brand. Again, all of that data is being captured inside of Google Analytics. And ultimately you buy. Whether that purchase happens online or offline, we are now able to capture those purchases. In some instances, in a lot of instances, most companies are not e-commerce companies. Most companies are B2B companies. And so they're generating leads online. That's the whole point. It's just to get a lead in the door and then sell offline. So it's important to not only be able to track those leads online, but be able to tie to an offline sale. And then we all know that it's a lot cheaper and easier to retain clients than it is to get new ones, and also how important word of mouth is. So the evaluate and advocate circle is really important because that's where that retention effort happens and the word of mouth effort happens. And again, all of these touch points that are happening, whether that's people posting reviews out on TripAdvisor, whether they're posting opinions on Twitter, all of those touch points, again, we're collecting with Google Analytics. So the next step, after we track all of that data, all of those touch points of the customer decision journey, we have a methodology that we use to what we call campaign tracking is typically what it's called. And we use that to track all of these touch points and to bring it into Google Analytics. Once they're in there, then we start combining it with other data. And this is where it gets fun, especially fun if you're a data nerd like we are. So this is where you start taking other aspects of these media channels. So we have the traffic coming to the websites that we're bringing in through campaign tracking, but now we also have costs, impressions, right? Clicks. So we start to bring in TV, radio, print. We bring in the buys. We actually bring in how much the TV buy cost, how many impressions we got, our TRPs. Radio, same thing. Print, we'll bring in, how many we mailed out, how much it cost us, out of home, direct mail, email, banner ads, paid search, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, brand health monitoring. It's not just important when you're trying to measure marketing. The media is critical, but you also want to bring in other aspects that will help you understand how your media is performing. And brand health monitoring, for those of you who may not know what that is, that's qualitative studies about your brand. And that can even be brought into a data warehouse so you can understand how your brand, how the awareness of your brand is being impacted by the marketing and the media that you're doing. We have mobile and apps and also websites. So all of these things have APIs, just automated ways to bring it into a data warehouse, or we can bring, you can bring in things via spreadsheets, however you have them. The idea is that in order to do this second phase of the path, this measure phase, the important thing is you have to get all this data together. If you don't have all this data together, you continue to look at it in silos. And if you continue to look at it in silos, you can't understand how they're working together. You can only understand how AdWords is working in a silo. You can only understand how TV is working in a silo. You can't understand that somebody first saw a TV ad and then saw your paid search ad. You don't know that they're working together. There's also phone leads that happen and web leads that happen. Plus, there's a ton more attribution sources that you want to think about whenever you're working on building your own marketing data warehouse. There's sources such as coupons, rebates, weather data even. We have one client that sells propane tanks. If they can have the best marketing campaign in the world, and if it rains one weekend, nobody's going to be grilling. It doesn't matter, right? So weather is an important metric for them to understand if their marketing is working. Bringing all of these sources in, getting it in one place, is how you start to do the fun stuff, is how you start to do attribution and predictive modeling. But first, you have to get all of the data together in a way that can be read and that can be modeled. And again, Google Analytics is our key data collector. It's more than just a web analytics tool. That's what its main purpose is, of course, is a web analytics tool, but we use it as a primary data collector for a lot of these sources. And that's why it's so important to have it set up and configured properly. So once you have all this data together in a data warehouse, then the next step is to start creating dashboards. You need to see what this data is telling you. So Google Analytics has some dashboards built into their tool where you can look at your Google Analytics data right there inside of the tool. And those dashboards are great, but based upon what we just talked about, what they don't do is they don't provide you the holistic view of all of your marketing. They won't tell you how much you spent on television. It won't tell you how much you spent in print or how much you spent in banner ads. It'll only tell you what happened after you came to the website. So these reports are great, but they are limited to digital media and digital optimization. So what we always recommend doing is supplementing Google Analytics with performance dashboards. So once you bring your data into a data warehouse, then you can use a visualization tool to build your own dashboards. There's a ton of visualization tools out there. We use one called Tableau software. You might have heard, they went public not too long ago, so you might have heard of them. If not, there's other ones like BIME or Domo. There's a ton of software solutions out there that can help you build dashboards. But the important part about that is you always have to have the data together and in a data warehouse first. We always say that marketing doesn't have a software problem. We have a ton of software options for us. Marketing has a data problem. We have data everywhere, and the data is not in a format that we can combine together and really understand what it means. Once we get the data in one place, then we can throw all the visualization software we want to at it. It doesn't really matter which one you use to build a dashboard. But it's getting that data in one place so you can make actionable decisions on it that's the most important part. Then comes attribution. And again, the whole point of attribution is to move away from a last-click conversion model. So again, historically, marketers have always relied on whatever happened last, that tactic gets all of the credit. So if we spent, $10 million in paid search advertising and, it accounted for 50% of our last-click conversions, then it gets all the credit. The challenge with a model like this is that it doesn't take into account the sales funnel. As we kind of illustrated with the customer decision journey, it typically starts with awareness and then goes to engagement and then conversion. So if you only focus on last click attribution, that means you're only focusing on those tactics that lead to conversion. If you only optimize for those, what happens to the top of the funnel? Right? Instead of being like this, it starts to shrink. You only start to focus on those converting tactics and not those awareness generating tactics. And overall, you start getting less people in the funnel. So that's why it's so important to understand not just last click, but what we call multi-channel attribution. To say for example, one of our clients is a movie theater company, and they do a ton of email, send out an email almost daily. And they were seeing the email wasn't converting very well. They weren't getting people were coming to the website, but they weren't buying movie tickets based upon the emails that they were sending. So they were like, well, maybe we should do less emails, or maybe we should just stop email altogether because it's not converting. People aren't buying. Well, so what we did is we looked at these multi-channel attribution reports that actually live inside of Google Analytics. That's one place to get it. And we noticed that while people weren't clicking from the emails and buying, emails were what they call an assister. An assister is just like in basketball, right? You know, you pass somebody the ball, they make the goal, you get credit for passing them the ball. So there's traffic sources, there's tactics that are assisters that do better at passing the ball than they do at actually making the basket. And in this example with our client, email was a great assister. Email was generating a lot of awareness for them, and it was getting people to click and come to the site, but they weren't converting. They were then coming back later from other tactics, and that's when they were converting. So if they did what they were thinking of doing and stopped doing email altogether, their overall traffic would have decreased and their overall conversions would have decreased. That's why understanding how that the customer decision journey and how all these channels work together is so important. So there is a report inside of Google Analytics that tells you which of your traffic sources are better assisters and which of your traffic sources are better last click converters. Also, once you have your data in a marketing data warehouse, you can then do customized attribution models. So the attribution models inside of Google Analytics are pretty basic, and they're out of the box. So they follow some pretty simple modeling rules where they assign equal value across all tactics or heavy up on one or the last or whatever. Those are great to get started with, but the next step you'll want to do is you want to build custom models based upon the performance of your media tactics. You want to back test those. So there's for all of us who aren't statisticians in the room, there's more than one way to model things. And so the idea is that with custom attribution modeling, you can get your true channel value and bring in all of the data sources. Again, Google Analytics is just going to be your digital data sources. Your data warehouse, that we talked about, has TV, radio, print, everything outside of digital. And so when you build a custom attribution model, you can include all of those offline data sources as well as your online data sources in your model. So you can understand exactly how TV is impacting sales. So one of our clients is Helzberg Diamonds. And Helzberg Diamonds has a couple different challenges. For those of you who may not be familiar with them, they're a leading jewelry retailer. They have 235 stores across the U.S., and they also have a robust website where you can buy jewelry online, and they also have a phone channel where you can call in and order over the phone. So they historically have used multiple tools. Like I said, we don't have a software problem, and they had multiple pieces of software kind of thrown at the problem, and they were getting multiple versions of the truth, and they didn't know what to believe. So they were confused. So they had become data gatherers, not decision makers. They were spending 4 hours every Monday morning copying, pasting data into spreadsheets, and were spending no time actually understanding what that data meant or doing anything about it. So Helzberg is unique in that they have online stores and offline, brick and mortar stores. Not everybody has that, but the companies that do have a unique challenge where they want to understand how online marketing is impacting in-store sales. That's a big question that a lot of marketers are trying to solve today. Is I'm spending millions and millions of dollars in online marketing. How is it affecting a person walking into the store and buying something? How do I make that that link between those two things? And that was their question, one of their questions as well. So for them, they obviously have Google Analytics. We set up Google Analytics for them, and they have dashboards out of Google Analytics that they look at on a daily basis to manage their website and their daily operations. We also created holistic dashboards for them using, again, a marketing data warehouse and a Tableau data visualization tool so that they could see all of their marketing together. So they do TV, radio, print. They have in-store efforts and online efforts. So they needed to see it all together in one place. So again, we moved them from just looking at the last click converting source to looking at all digital sources and how they were converting, again with a multi-channel attribution, to see which tactics were better as assisters and which tactics were better as last click converters. We also implemented a holistic attribution model so that we would understand the true channel value of online and offline channels. So now what we're able to do is we're able to tell if, if Matt is, let's say he's on his cell phone and he sees a paid search ad for Helzberg, clicks on it, comes to the website, looks around, doesn't buy anything, goes into the store and buys the necklace that he looked at online, we now are able to tie that all together. We now know that Matt, who just bought something in the store, was the same Matt that looked at the paid search ad, clicked through it, and looked at a piece of jewelry on Helzberg's site. So we can now make that entire cohesive loop and tie that online behavior into offline sales. And that's something that is extremely difficult to do and a huge, huge question for a lot of marketers today. So again, they use the same analytics strategy that I showed you earlier, track, measure, target, predict. And it started out with Google Analytics tracking. Then we, built Google Analytics dashboards. We have our holistic dashboards. We're doing attribution analysis inside of Google Analytics, and then we pulled it out to do custom attribution modeling. And now we're to what we call the omni-channel. Omni-channel refers to online and offline, pulling those two sources together. So now they have completed the entire path. So just to recap, keys to marketing analytics success. Map your customer's decision journey. Understand what your customer's decision journey looks like and what touch points they're interacting with along the way so that you can make sure you're tracking every single one of those touch points inside of Google Analytics. Implement your marketing analytics framework. So whether you use track, measure, target, predict like we do, or whether you have a framework of your own that you like, make sure that you have a plan in place to track all of your data, to pull it together into a data warehouse, to create actionable reporting, and to do some attribution modeling. Use Google Analytics to connect the customer decision journey together. Google Analytics is free. It's very robust. Google continues to invest a ton of money in the tool because, well, why? Why do you think Google invests in Google Analytics?
It
Wants your data, and what else?
wants you to use the rest of the products.
Well, they don't sell your data. They want you to be happy customers because of the one thing that makes Google money, which is Google AdWords. Their paid search marketing makes them a ton of money. And being able to measure that and prove out how well Google AdWords works is why they have Google Analytics. That's the whole point of Google Analytics, is to say AdWords is really effective and you should spend more money in it. So Google is motivated to continue to invest in Google Analytics because it makes them money, basically, even though it's a free tool. So use Google Analytics. It's a great tool. We've used every web analytics tool in the past, and Google's our favorite. Integrate your key channel performance data together. So again, bring it into a data warehouse. Don't put it in Excel. Excel is not a reporting tool. Excel is not a data warehouse. Neither is PowerPoint. PowerPoint is not a reporting tool. PowerPoint is for this. It's for presentations. Excel is not for building reports in. It's an accounting tool. So bring it together into a data warehouse and use true reporting pieces of software to generate reports. Deliver a single source of truth to drive communication and value. in a lot of organizations, there's a lot of disparate data floating around. A lot of people have different reports with numbers that don't match each other's. Having one data warehouse with all of the data in it that everybody works off of, whether that's internal marketers or external agencies, having everybody using the same data and the same reporting gives you a single source of truth so that you're making the best decisions possible. And then utilize attribution to maximize performance and ROI. We can't rely on last click attribution any longer. It's not realistic. We need to focus on multi-channel attribution and omni-channel attribution so that we can make sure that we're using all of our marketing tactics appropriately and in the right place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much.